what you're doing with this, you know, some of what I do, and certainly decent public aquaria.
Yeah.
You know, they really are, I think, helping on this quite deeper level of connecting people with nature, and I think that's really important. Hi everyone, George here, and welcome to a new video. I'm actually at Aquarium Gardens right now, and the reason I'm here is to get some plants for Tai Scape. So if you've watched part one, then you'll know that I left it on a bit of a cliffhanger. We haven't seen the complete aquascape yet. This video is going to show you the complete aquascape, but before we get there, we're going to get some more plants. Unfortunately, a lot of the background crypts melted. So Dave, owner of Aquarium Gardens, has very, very generously allowed us to steal some crypt balancei from the back of this Aquascape 1200. So I think it's just worth looking at this 1200 in a bit more detail actually. Absolutely stunning scape. I think it's coming up for 6 months plus now since it was scaped originally, maybe even longer. And it's matured beautifully. Loads of epiphyte plants, beautiful Bucophalandra here. I think this is the Bucophalandra wavy green. More Bucophalandra up here. I've got some beautiful lilies, some Nymphea species, Nymphea lotus. And then in the back, you can just see there, in the background is the crypt balancei. Moving over to the centre, we've got some Eustryiana there at the surface, that red leaf there. So on the surface, we've got some Salvinia auriculata. Big fan of floating plants actually, especially in a scape like this. Helps to block the light so you're not getting so much algae. Produces oxygen, shelter and security for the fish. So let's go right over to the back and we can see the balancei, which we are going to take a few specimens for Tai's tank. Beautiful colours from this Twin Star 1200. This is the same night as I've got on my 1200 as well. And you can see those big broad leaves in the centre. That's the Cryptocorona Eustryiana. Hi everyone, George here, and it's really great today. I am at Tai's house. You may have seen the first video where we actually set up this beautiful aquascape. I'll leave a link to that right now up there and in the description, so do check out that kind of step by step. Pleased to say the scape is looking great. Believe it or not, Tai has actually put some fish in here, but they're being super shy. I'll try and get some footage of them before I go, but just have to trust me that there are fish in there. So I've got some checkered barbs, some cherry barbs, various danios, hillstream loach. I just really like the scape. It's not particularly biotope specific because we've got plants from Asia, we've got plants from Africa, but it's definitely got this kind of natural theme. We've got some round pebbles which you'd find in kind of like a river system. Then Tai's actually added a couple of power heads to increase the circulation, increase the flow to kind of mimic this kind of stream river effect. Lighting, we've got the two Twin Star 600 SPs on the EA lighting and hanging kits. Filtration is the eHeim Pro 3, the big one. It's got 2 inlets, 1 outlet. And then you can see this huge plant coming up the top. This is a couple of different species of philodendron. It's actually going all the way across the kitchen. This is great because it actually acts as another nutrient export to help maintain water quality. Plant-wise, let's start from the bottom, shall we? We've got Anubias Petite, we've got Anubias Nana, we've got some Taxiphyllum Spiky, Bucophalandra Wavy Green, Bulbitis, we've got Hygrophila pinnatifida as an epiphyte plant as well. In the background we've got some Cryptocorona balancei, Cryptocorona Eustryiana and some Nymphea lotus and a couple of other Nymphea species which I'll put in the description. You probably saw at the beginning of this video we had to get some more crypts from Aquarium Gardens because basically, unfortunately, all of the established crypts from the previous scape had melted, so it left a completely kind of barren background, and Tai's obviously quite keen to fill it up for the film. He's actually going away back to Brazil, so we'll talk more about that with Tai later. But I think he was quite happy to obviously see a full aquascape before he left, and we wanted to give you something good to look at as well, of course. Floating plants, we've got, is it Amazon frogbit? Yeah, so we've got Limnobium levigatum, and any other plants I've forgotten, Tai?
The Java narrows.
Oh, we've got some Microsorum narrow.
Cryptalbida.
OLB brown as well in the front here. There's a couple of other crypts as well, some Willisii. We'll go into more detail about the story behind the scape, and we'll just have a general chat with Tai because he's a really interesting guy. He was the first chap that I interviewed for Meet the Scaper, the most popular guy that I've had on the channel so far. So I thought it would be great as well, as a little treat. We're just going to go for a big ramble when we're going to just to and fro questions and have a conversation about aquascaping, biotopes, the Amazon, and anything that takes our fancy. So I hope you can watch it to the end, that'd be really appreciated. So we'll dive into a bit of a Q&A with Tai now. Okay, hello Tai.
Hey George.
Thanks so much for letting me help you scape this tank.
Thank you.
We had great fun. Actually, we're at, as you've seen already in the video, we're at Aquarium Gardens yesterday, weren't we?
Yeah.
Do you want to let them know why we had to do that?
So we had all the really large Cryptocorn Asturiana, big, beautiful, 30 centimetre long leaves, which George and I planted in. And as crypts sometimes do, when you move them about, the leaves all melted away within 2 or 3 days. And it left this great big sort of open space in the back of the tank. And Dave at Aquarium Gardens very nicely sorted us out with some Cryptocorn Balenci from an established tank.
1200, yeah. So shout out to Aquarium Gardens for helping us out.
Thank you, Dave.
Big ask, letting us help ourselves to their probably one of their nicest display tanks. And you saw the scape before from the first Meet the Scaper, massively different scape. Do you want to tell a bit of the story about the choice of the hardscape and what kind of effect we've gone for?
Well, I wanted something that was really low maintenance because, like I said, I'm away in the field, 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
My family look after the tank, friends drop by every now and then, so it had to be really low energy, low maintenance plants, simple scape, but at the same time, being in the kitchen, it's the main social room of the house.
So you want it to look
it's
nice.
got to have impact.
Yeah.
This is why when we talked about lots of epiphytic plants on the wood, something interesting like a U-shaped composition here. And then rock-wise, to be pragmatic, we went with what I had available, which are the river boulders and pebbles.
I really like using these because I've never used these really before. I did a White Cloud Mountain minnow scape years ago. It's on the channel actually, I think it's from like 2009 or something, so over 10 years ago now. But very, very rarely use these, and these are really commonly available, aren't they, in garden centres?
Yep.
So, it just shows that you don't necessarily need to spend a lot of money with your hardscape. And
also they with that rounded structure, they just look natural. You put them in and they look like they've been there forever.
Yeah.
Whereas with an aquascape using other forms of rock, it can take time for that to bed in.
Yeah.
Here you put the anubias in between and...
Yeah, and because they've been kept in the garden, or they've got this like coating of algae and organics on there, which makes it a bit more mature. And because they're kind of rounded, it gives this indication that they come from like a fast flowing stream, right? And that's why you've got the extra power heads in there?
Yeah, I sort of looked at it and thought, well, it does look like, a hill stream set up perhaps with some epiphytic plants along the bank, and the fish I was going for are from cooler water habitats. They need oxygen, they like a bit of flow. So I put the power heads in just to increase the circulation, give the tank some movement, leaves waving back and forth, so it's not so static. I think it's quite effective that way.
That's a good tip as well. The lower, I don't know if you guys know this already, but the lower the temperature of the water, the more oxygen it carries, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And actually this is one of the reasons, we're going off topic a little bit, but this is one of the reasons I like to run my tanks on the cooler side. I find there's less algae growth because all the metabolic processes in the aquarium are all temperature dependent, so the warmer the water, everything's working quicker, more ammonia is being produced, the fish are more hungry, more CO2 is being produced by the fish, they demand more food, they're producing more waste. So if you can drop the temperature, obviously keeping in within their tolerance of what they like, fish welfare should be always paramount, but we can really help to kind of slow things down, keep maintenance down, keep algae down, and this is a great idea for, obviously you're away for 6 months at a time, we want to slow everything right down. So is this just room temperature?
Yeah, well, this is on, I've got the heat set for 21 degrees.
What's that Fahrenheit, do you know what that is? I'll put a thing over there.
You have to convert. But it's normally sort of in line with what the house is. But you'd be surprised, a lot of species that are very popular in the hobby, the tetras that I see in Brazil, we find in areas where sometimes in the morning there's frost on the ground.
Wow.
Some of the echinodorus, the big sword plants, come from regions where it occasionally snows.
Wow.
So if you look at the tolerances of what fish you're planning to keep, you can often think, oh, actually I can lower the temperature. It's also great for saving a bit of money.
Yeah.
If you've got a energy bill to pay.
Yeah, if a big tank is going to take a lot of money to heat that up,
and
isn't
especially open-topped tanks.
And I think this is a really interesting point, because when you go online, most 99% of people are looking online for their information on fish keeping, aren't they? And probably a large portion of that information is from websites that might not be getting their information from particularly reliable sources. So you might just do a Google search for what temperature should I keep a neon tetra at, and you'll get a generic answer, 25 to 28. But actually, you can probably find it down to 21, 22.
Well, the two websites I always recommend is Fishbase and Seriously Fish.
I'll leave links to those.
Yeah, a lot of their information comes from scientific articles that are published. And often if you go to the bottom of the page for that species, it'll list the publications.
Yeah.
And you can even Google and get the PDF up.
Yeah.
And also the catalogue of fishes is quite good.
Okay.
If you want really in-depth articles on species, catalogue of fish, Google that, put the fish in, it'll give you links to articles and you can see exactly what temperature, the flow, pH they were kept in.
Yeah, and I think this is a really useful information, because let's face it, a lot of people are lazy, aren't they? And they'll just go to the main Google page and just type in that search term, rather than going into a peer-reviewed scientific article or whatever. But if you really want to get the most out of the hobby and the most out of your fish, and it's worth doing that extra bit of research, isn't it? Let's talk about that. So you're an ichthyologist. So for people that don't know what that is, what is it?
It's a biologist who specialises in the study of fish.
Cool.
And I work with freshwater fish in Brazil, principally.
Yeah.
Although, as you know, my background is as an aquarist.
Yeah.
So I came from the hobby and went towards science.
Did you work at London Zoo?
I worked at London Zoo in the aquarium there. Looked after the Amazonian and Pantanal exhibits, and also the rare species breeding program.
Wow.
Which was cool, but a lot of pressure, because sometimes you had, the only 30 eggs of one species in the world.
Oh my gosh.
And you had to maintain them, get them to hatch, raise them, and if you lost one, that was
a lot of pressure, isn't it?
Yeah, it was good experience.
So you're based in Brazil. Whereabouts in Brazil?
I'm based in a city called Campo Grande, which is in western Brazil. Mm-hmm. It's near the border with Bolivia and Paraguay. It's a couple of hours from the Pantanal wetlands, which are the big famous wetlands. It's quite a long way from the Amazon. It's about 2,700 kilometres south of the Amazon basin.
Yeah.
But we do get some overlap in species. And,
okay. Can you give me some footage to overlay, and then the guys can see the kind of what you're looking at, what you're studying and stuff?
I mean, I work principally in wetland habitats, so lowland rivers, but I'll send some images as well. I also work in highland karst streams. Those are the clear water streams that I've shown you. Lots of aquatic vegetation, and also in areas near the city where I am, which is heavily, it's been changed for agriculture, but you still find, little hill streams and also flooded meadows full of killifish, lots of aquatic plants like hairgrass and echinodorus we find. You've got tractors driving past, and you're netting out, tetras and killifish that we find in the hobby. Yeah. So it's quite a privilege.
Yeah. So what is it you're actually studying?
So I'm we've got this river, the Salobra River, and I'm cataloguing as many of the species in that river as I can, which has never been done before. Okay. We reckon it's probably about 250 to 300 species there. Mm-hmm. I've found about 120 of them so far. It's not easy. No. You go out to the field, you do collections in the wet season, the dry season. It's every time there's an adventure, and you've got to deal with lots of snakes. Biggest problem is mosquitoes. We've also got caiman crocodiles. We've got giant otters, which you don't want to be in the water when they're around because they're really territorial and aggressive.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
But it makes it always an adventure. Yeah. And we get to see some fantastic things.
Have you ever been bitten by a snake, or any close calls with nature?
Close calls with nature. Once, a couple of years ago in Brazil, I got stung by a stonefish, and that paralysed my arm for 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
And I had a complete seizures, collapsed on the ground, and they pumped adrenaline into me. Wow. And luckily, the last year or so, nothing serious. I had dengue fever from the mosquitoes. Which wasn't fun. No. But as long as, it's like most things, if you respect the animals, you know, you see the caiman are in the water with you see the stingrays are there, you see the anaconda, you give it space, you're aware of it, but you also remember that's a wild animal. And then they tend to be, keep your distance and it's okay.
And just stay calm, I guess.
Nearly always accidents are, if you surprise them and they're surprised, then you can have problems, but generally it's pretty safe. So
that's cool. And what's your kind of long-term plan then with
This is a good question. I think my goal is always to try and bring people and nature closer together, so I'd like to try and use the studies to get into a role, perhaps a liaison role between NGOs and the public. The city that I'm in, they're building a very large aquarium, supposedly the largest freshwater aquarium in Latin America, which will be called the Aquarium of the Pantanal.
Brand new?
Brand new.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Showcasing all the region's freshwater species. So one of my things that I'm doing at the moment is I'm working a little bit with the team that are involved in that, to see if I can get a foot in the door and come on board as a consultant, because I have a background in public aquaria and a specialist in Latin American species.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
So it would be a great way forward.
If you need someone to help scape any tanks.
Well, I mean, this is the nice thing. We walk around the empty aquarium and they say, "Well, Tai, what do you think we should stock? This exhibit's going to be a flooded Pantanal meadow. What should we put?" I said, "Well, Serpe tetras, blackline tetras. Oh, and how many?" I said, "Well, maybe 200-300 Serpes gets a big tank." And he said, "Oh no, it's a 20,000 litre tank. Let's add an extra 0 on there." And you say, "Oh wow." So that's exciting.
Yeah, that's really cool, isn't it? I remember when I did the Hagenbeck one.
Really large.
I think that's 28,000 litres, and I could have had so many more fish in there.
I think this is one of the things that's tempting, of course.
For the big ones.
Yeah, even in the hobby, you think, "Oh, big tank, let's just fill it with fish." But even on large scale public aquaria, you've got to really think, what is going to go, as you would with a tank in your living room. What species can go with what species? Who's going to eat who? Are there going to be territorial issues? Water parameters, are they going to fit everybody?
And I also think, I think the idea behind an exhibit is to educate the public, isn't it? And I think it shouldn't just be like an attraction, like a high impact, attraction like, look at all these massive colourful fish. I think there should be a responsibility there to kind of connect people with nature on a deeper level, rather than just having some gaudy moving ornament, which is effectively what a lot of fish tanks are. They're just a glass box full of fluorescent moving stuff. No real respect paid to that as a living entity or a slice of nature. So I think what you're doing with this, some of what I do, and certainly decent public aquaria, they really are, I think, helping on this quite deeper level of connecting people with nature, and I think that's really important.
Well, one of the positive things I've seen though is that, for instance, the Biotope movement, sort of aquaria, there's a lot of, especially guys in Poland, for instance, there's a lot of guys who are producing fantastic Biotope tanks. And it is exactly that. It's not about the gaudy.
No.
They're aesthetically pleasing, but also really, realistic, mimicking a particular stream. And a lot of people always thought that's quite challenging, but there's quite a lot of information out there that shows actually it's not so difficult if you just do your research, as you said earlier. If you look up the basics about what your animal needs, what the plants need, and try and look at some material of what other people have done.
And you can still use a little bit of artistic licensing, can't you? You can still use rule of thirds, you can use composition, triangular, or I remember it's 10 plus years ago when I was writing that series for Practical Fish Keeping. I talked about the mountain minnow one.
The Cambodian peat.
The first blackwater I ever did with harlequins, and then did the Amazon one with Combomba, the red Combomba.
And I really liked the 120 with the Rio Nanai, with the angelfish. You had all this fantastic wood, and it was completely Biotope correct, but it was scaped beautifully, and all the angles were just right. It really combined, and it was a blackwater tank with some wood and sand. But it was also living art. And I think if you if you aquascape a biotope, you can produce something beautiful.
Yeah, do you know what I really regret? Because I had all those images on
Yeah.
an old laptop, and I think I destroyed, you know, so they're all, and they're
Gone.
probably in the practical fish keeping archives, but
Sure you
I'll
can
try and get some,
dig some out.
I'll try and get some and overlay it on this film.
One of your other tanks that I've told you before that I always loved was your jungle tank,
Yeah.
which was, you know, nothing like a biotope,
No.
but just this explosion of chaos,
Yeah.
which is exactly how I see fish living amongst aquatic plants in the wild.
Yeah.
Lots of different species of fish and plants mixed together, patches of low light where, you know, low light plants are thriving,
Yeah.
everything else going up to the surface, lilies, and just the fish in that tank and the vibrancy of the tank was incredible.
Yeah, that was redfin, the red
Colombian tetras,
Colombian tetras,
penguins, and neons.
and neons.
And you had all these greens,
Yeah.
and then you had red and blue,
Yeah.
beautiful, you know, such colours that just clicked.
And I had some Aponogeton and Crispus red, which
Yeah.
we don't do anymore.
Which I was after and could never get
No,
hold
I
of.
think I'm not sure we can get it anymore. So that was good. That was a nice tank. That jungle
Looks good.
style. Yeah.
And I did a few jungle tanks based on that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, and I visited you, didn't I, for that first PFK visit?
yeah.
Yeah. So bit of rambling there. Anything else you want to discuss while we're here?
I just think, you know, a lot of people look at aquascape tanks and it can almost seem too much of a challenge.
Yeah.
Your
A
work.
bit unapproachable.
Yeah, and you've been great at showing that actually if you just follow the basics in terms of aesthetics and planning,
Yeah.
you can achieve something fantastic. And you know, you've aquascaped this tank for me, and I've been able to watch you do it and produce something that I didn't think, you know, I could perhaps set up in here. And for me, it's just taken my tank from a tank I was kind of tired with,
Yeah.
you know, a bit bored, and it's given it this whole new life. And I think a lot of people can take something from that, you know.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. I think I've kind of honed the process over the years. I think it's kind of worth talking about it because it is really simple. It's just start off with good hardscape materials to start with. That's the backbone of the layout. That's kind of your main structure, your skeleton.
Yeah.
So we've got nice stones here, which, you know, from the garden centres, from your garden. We've got some beautiful wood, manzanita wood from Aquarium Gardens. So that's your kind of main structure.
Yeah.
And then think about the plants, and I always go foreground, midground, background, epiphytes. So
Yeah.
we've obviously gone hugely epiphyte heavy on here, and then background. And then instead of foreground plants, we've gone for like an open sand, and then we've used some smaller kind of pebbles. In fact, we've got some, just want to go and grab them?
Yeah.
You can add these as a detail later. And this is all about adding like details at the end, which really, you know, lots of details added together make a really big difference. So this is probably the Bio Relief Series G, and what's that?
This is the also Series G, slightly larger.
So this is like natural gravels, which
Yeah.
I think the colours are going to match really well in here. And we just literally sprinkle them. So you start off with the biggest textures, and you go down to the next texture size down, and then the finest texture, and then you've got the sand. And this is what you'd find in nature. You know, you go from, you know, that kind of really sort of flat sand to the big, you know.
That's the way that current lifts sediment, deposits stones and pebbles.
Just like nature. So we'll do that in a minute, and I'll get some footage of that.
I was going to mention the fish that are supposedly in here.
Yeah, I don't believe you.
So there's, I went to your local Maidenhead in Huntingdon,
Yeah.
and the manager Sam there sorted me out with some really beautiful.
Yeah, shout out to Sam, he does me loads of deals, and I
He's-
always forget to mention him
Exactly.
in my videos.
He did me a deal on some orange finned danios, which are beautiful fish, which I saw in the tank at Aquarium Gardens.
Yeah.
Never kept them before they went in.
Oh, right.
And then Max at Maidenhead, Scottsdales, here in Cambridge, I walked in and he had the gold ring danios, the Brachydanio tinwinis.
Oh, right.
Another fish I'd never kept. I completely fell in love with them.
Yeah.
He gave me a great deal on them. They are in here. They were spawning the day after I added them.
Oh, really?
They're now all hidden. And there's some checker barbs in here.
I was just seeing some barbs.
Yeah.
There's one just come out.
So I went for sort of fairly subtle fish that, you know, the plants really are the dominant thing here. The fish are like an accent to it.
Yeah.
And as the tank, I've got a sort of long-term view that as the tank fills out with lots of thick crypts in the back, it becomes a bit more jungly, there'll be darker areas, you know, the fish will feel more comfortable, and you'll be rewarded by, you know, oh, you suddenly catch a glimpse of this or that, rather than they're always on display like a large shoal of cardinals might be.
There's actually one in the Marno's original book, Nature Aquarium Book 1, Nature Aquarium World Book 1. He tells a story about, he set up, I think it was a South American cichlid tank, and he had some rare cichlids in there, and he had some visitors, and the visitors were complaining that they couldn't see them, and he said just exactly that. He said, you know, you're rewarded more when you do see them. It's a case of, I think this, and on a deeper level, it's almost like the problem with society is that we have this kind of instant gratification, you know, and I think having, you know, doing a not necessarily biotope, but keeping it more natural, keeping more cryptic fish that will only show themselves when they're comfortable, not when you want to see them. You know, I think this is showing more respect to nature, and I think this is, you know, what we can all learn from.
And I think tying into this idea of, you know, the stepping away from instant gratification, a lot of it, mental health wise, that chair has saved me so many times. Because I've come home, I've sat in front of my tank, in whatever stage it was, but I've sat in front of it and I've just gone into this Zen mode. The animals don't care about my day, they don't care about what's happening in the wider world, they don't give a damn about politics. They're just living their lives in this universe of a glass box. I'm responsible for their well-being, so if they're happy and healthy and swimming around, I've done something right. The rest of the day might have gone terribly, but I'm in this space where I can watch these animals just living their lives, and I find the stress kind of seeps away. And if you've got fish, especially that you have to sit still, you chill out, you watch, you start to notice so many more things. Suddenly you see a little shrimp with eggs, suddenly you see, you know, one of your loaches sort of grazing between the pebbles, and it's a reward that's so much more than walking in and boom, there are your large shoal of fish.
Exactly.
I think that's quite useful.
Yeah, it's almost like a mindfulness, isn't it? So you disconnecting from that modern stress of day-to-day living that we have here in the UK and most of Western society.
And it doesn't have to be, you know, a 400 litre tank. You could do this in a nano. In
fact, a nano arguably is even better because you're forced to look up close, get so close to it that you actually, your peripheral vision, you don't really have any. So you're super close. You're seeing, forced to look at the shrimp, forced to look at, you know, and the details really matter. And the closer you get to stuff, actually, the more detail you see. So nothing wrong with nano tanks at all.
And I find that often I'll sit down in front of the tank. I'll be busy doing things, and then I'll find my moment to sit down in front of the tank. And then I know that I've got to do something in an hour or half an hour. And I feel like a kid at the park. I don't want to leave that space. I want to stay there. Why do I need to go? And you realise, wow, this is what I'm getting from this. This beautiful object, this experience, is a sense of peace.
And I think, and just to add another layer onto that, I think there's something about creating it as well as being a creator rather than a consumer. Do you know what I mean? So actually, you're getting enjoyment and fulfilment out of creating something, rather than just being passive and consuming, you know, the day-to-day BS that you're fed via media and consumerism and stuff like this. You're actually creating something beautiful that's natural as well. It's connecting you with nature. It's helping to connect your family and your friends with nature. You know, and through things like YouTube, we're connecting more people. And you know, I think this is one of the beautiful things about the hobby, is actually just reconnecting people with nature in this.
Doesn't matter if you live in a flat in the centre of a big city. You can have a tank there and have your little rectangle of nature in your life.
And you know, and we're actually seeing it. I think more and more people embrace this with more house plants. This is getting quite big now. Terrariums are getting really big, paludariums. I think more and more people are getting in touch with this natural side, which I think is great. And you know, the big picture is actually, you know, hopefully will help to save the planet, which we're pretty much destroying right now.
Well, this is one of the things I think when people, for instance, they keep a fish and they get curious about, you know, the wild habitat. How does that animal live in the wild? They perhaps look at some literature, or they Google images, or they Google the name, and then they start saying, oh, actually that place is being, you know, logged or drained or filled with pesticide. They've suddenly stepped out of their living room and are aware of something that's happening on the other side of the world that's really detrimental. And it may not come to anything, but it may manifest itself as, you know, in action, in donation, in an awareness, in another voice for nature. And I think aquarists and hobbyists in general have quite a lot of responsibility to stand up for nature. Because we love it. And if we have it here, we need to care about its origins as well.
Absolutely. Oh well, that's great.
But I'm sorry the fish aren't showing off.
I saw them a couple of times.
No, the barbs are normally out all sort of grazing. The checker barbs come out, because I thought about what fish are going to go in. So barbs for lower levels, sort of bumbling between the pebbles. Slightly larger sized danios at mid-level, smaller danios that tended to hang out near the surface, and then for interest, the little Soelia loach, the Vietnamese butterfly loach.
Oh, nice.
So he's also an algae cleaner.
Right.
There's just him, there's plenty of alphas on the rocks already.
Yeah.
But again, suddenly he comes out, he's completely different from everyone else.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, I saw him today.
Bit of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, really excited to come back. So you're going back to Brazil
Monday, a couple of days.
A few days, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, make sure you get in touch with me when you're back.
Yeah, probably
we'll
in
do a
June.
follow-up video. I'm sure all the guys watching will be interested to see how this is going to develop.
I'm really excited about it.
Maybe I can pop over and maybe I'll touch base with your mum.
Yeah.
Pop over and do
that would
an
be
update.
totally fine.
Yeah.
Come in, film.
Yeah.
And
if it looks alright.
when I'm in Brazil, I tell her, FaceTime. And she gets annoyed because I want to see the tank, put the iPad to the tank.
I want to see the tank.
And she says, tank's alright, tank's still good. So, okay. And now it's been rescaped, and I know how it's going to mature over time.
Yeah.
I'm going to be requesting that again because I want to see how it develops. So.
That's great. Good. Okay. Well, we'll add some more little gravelly detail bits. Before we go, I want to give a special thanks to Tai again for inviting me over. Special thanks to Dave from Aquarium Gardens as well for doing us some great deals on the materials and for the epic plants that he helped us out with last night with. And yeah, that's about it. We'll wrap it up there. I'll get some B-roll of adding the details and I'll do some cinematic stuff at the end. Really hope you enjoyed that, guys. Real great afternoon with Tai as always. We have a really good chat. Hopefully you got a little sense of where we're coming from and maybe have a little think about where your journey is going with the hobby yourself and how you can maybe connect with nature and maybe help connect other people with nature. So you take care, keep on scaping. Cheerio. Cheers, mate.
Thank you. It's good.
Chat, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was good.